I wonder if Nanaimo Mayor John Rattan likes mochachinos, because that's what he's getting today with our coffee with the mayor. There was a council meeting on Monday night. We're going to talk about what happened. On today's show, traditional images in a non-traditional medium, wasabi on Vancouver Island, and a road trip to Galliano. That and more in the next 30 minutes. Today on Go Island, we are in conversation with Nanaimo Mayor John Rattan. We're going to talk on the Wilcox property, the rail yard on the waterfront. There are some major changes in moving towards turning that property into a transportation hub for the city of Nanaimo. We're going to talk about the move from the annex back into City Hall. That's taking place next week. And there is a reconciliation forum that will deal with racism taking place at Vancouver Island Conference Centre on Wednesday night. Go Island will be there, and we're going to get John Rattan's thoughts on that. We're starting things off though with Kelly Robinson. The blending of two cultures come together when Aboriginal students start working in an untraditional medium. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. One of the shortest council meetings perhaps on record. It was less than 45 minutes on Monday night. One of the things that did come up was the Wilcox property. And what is the current status of that piece of very industrialized, inaccessible waterfront, if you're...
Well, partially accessible. I mean, that it's a beautiful piece of land, but it has limitations for the public, and that's a concern that we have. The city bought it and $3.4 million, and we're going to develop it primarily as a transportation hub. And we see that that has huge potential if and when we are successful with our endeavors to get that fast ferry back.
Right.
And we're working hard on that. Then the ICF, the rail corridor people, have a view if they are able to proceed with their plans, and they seem confident that they will. Then the rail service could start from there, go down to Victoria, back up to the new train station here in Nanaimo, continue on to Courtenay, back to the new train station, back to Victoria, and then end up back here in Nanaimo at the rail yard again on the waterfront. So it would be a transportation hub, and we'd also like to see the RDN bus service based out of there, move down from Prideaux Street. We'd also want to have talks with Tofino Bus and the remaining bus services on Vancouver Island that would like to join us as well and make it a true transportation hub. And
that allows for some of that industrial activity from the harbour that's absolutely necessary to continue in conjunction with that. And there's a committee being formed, a South End Waterfront committee that will start working towards making this a reality. How long before we start seeing things happening, and who's going to make that happen?
Well, basically, it's going to be made up by a number of entities, SFN primarily, Nanaimo First Nations. Then we'll obviously have the Port Authority involved, NEDC, Nanaimo Economic Development Corporation. We're looking at the downtown, DNBIA will have a part in it. South End Association will also be involved, the city, of course, as well. So we're trying to get all the players that are involved in that to give us an overview of how they see it unfolding. And some of the challenges they're going to have to sit down and work with right off the top is access. As you pointed out, you're absolutely right, Kate, because the thing is there is, and there are working leases in place. Most people are aware that the trains come in and exit Vancouver Island from that point. With trains coming and going and heavy transport trucks driving through there, it does make it challenging to have people and transportation there as well. So scheduling is the issue, and we want to deal with that. But that's what the committee will look at.
And how far off is that?
Well, I would say we're very close at it at this point. We've got the committee pretty well structured. The people that have been named on it have accepted the position to be really consultants and advisors on how it's going to obviously belong to the city. But we want their input. We want community input to find out exactly how they see this unfolding.
More information, as usual, available probably through the City of Nanaimo website, and watch council meetings on Shaw TV on Monday nights, or attend in person to keep up to date on what's happening with the South End waterfront property known as the Wilcox Yard. We're going to throw things over now to Ryan LaPlante. Wasabi, if you've had it on your sushi, it's probably fake, but now there's a real wasabi facility right here on Vancouver Island. Still ahead today on Go Island, the hidden devastation of cystic fibrosis and a road trip with the ladies to Galliano Island. That and more still ahead today on Go. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. Nice view, hey? This is the lunchroom at the Service and Resource Center with the City of Nanaimo. A lot of the city staff have been hanging out here, working out of this office, but there's a move underway, if I got that right?
Well, they're not actually hanging out. They're working very hard.
Oh, right. Working
Come on,
very,
now,
very
let's
hard.
remember.
Although the coffee is fabulous.
And very reasonably priced. Anyway, they but the view.
Thank you for the coffee, by the way.
You're welcome. But the view is great here, and you know, we'll be moving. And
you've been out of City Hall for how long now, and what's happening
well,
there?
about 4 or 5 months now, and next week we'll be back in the old building again.
And how will it be different?
Well, what's happened, one of the difficulties we had is trying to make the working facility more, I guess, successful, maybe more convenient, certainly more efficient. And so what we had in the past was at the old city quarter building, we had the building I think we referred to as the annex, and that will be shutting down, and the senior staff that's there, City Manager Al Kenning and others will be moving to City Hall. So the legislative services, the mayor's office, and the senior staff will all be in one building.
Are you looking forward to being back in your office?
Yeah, in a lot of ways I am. You know, it was all right, but the building is old, and you know, it'll be pleasant to get into the surroundings again. Although I don't think the mayor's office is going to change that much. But you know, we look forward to it. This building, they call it the SARC building is the term now. I think is a great facility, and now proximity being a factor, getting between the two is just a matter of a very, very short walk across the street on the crosswalk, which we didn't have before.
There should be a corridor, like a covered up for those
we
rainy
thought
days
about that.
we have too many of, and you can...
Yeah, but then they thought, nah, if it's a tall truck, it causes problems.
Underground tunnels.
Well, but then there's money. So I think all in all, we're going to be excited to get back and get it established. But I think the other thing we're looking forward to is that there's been a company is going to take over the old annex site. They're going to rebuild it, and it's going to be Tectonics is the company that's involved. They're going to be building the ground floor, I understand, will be retail. That's the plan at this point. It may change. And then the upper floors will be office space and so on. So the building will actually generate more people in the downtown area and certainly in the old city quarter where we are. So yeah, more people means benefit to the local businesses, and we see that as a win-win.
And bring more foot traffic sort of up to this area of the city. Okay, great. So the next time we're enjoying coffee with Nanaimo Mayor John Rattan, could be in his office back in City Hall. We're going to throw things down to Souk, just out of Victoria now. Nikki Iwanishin introduces us to a young boy who has cystic fibrosis. By looking at him, you wouldn't know that it's a devastating disease, but when you get to know what his life is like every day, you can have a bit more understanding. Here's Nikki. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. We're in our bi-weekly conversation with Nanaimo Mayor John Rattan, a follow-up on the previous night's City Council meeting. It was a very short meeting last night, but one thing that is on top of many minds in the city but didn't come up at the meeting last night was a reconciliation forum taking place at Vancouver Island University, hosted by VIU and the Nanaimo First Nations, to address racism against Aboriginals, specifically in our community.
But I think in fairness, while that is, you're absolutely right, that's the focus. But I think racism generally will also be brought up as well. This was occasioned by an unfortunate letter that was picked up by the Nanaimo Daily News and published. It was in my opinion, was a racist letter. It did create a lot of angst and concern on the part of First Nations and others in the community. And the result of that regretful decision to print that letter is where we are today.
And that reflected negatively not just on the paper, but the city as a whole. And you had mentioned that people coming to Nanaimo to invest money in things like a hotel were concerned about the environment of this city because of that.
And I hope I'm allowed to share an observation, but Chief White of Nanaimo First Nations was back at the UN as part of a delegation about 2 weeks ago, and somebody came up and made reference to the fact that Nanaimo is that racist city on the West Coast. And this is in New York. So, you know, when you make decisions like this without looking at the eventual outcome, serious problems happen. And to me, as the mayor, it's embarrassing and shocking that we are in the position where we have to explain that racism is not alive and well in Nanaimo. That's a very small, isolated group.
I was going to ask you if you think it's true. Is Nanaimo perhaps more racist
I don't think so.
than other communities?
I really don't think so, and I don't think so any more than any other community of its size. Because I'd like to think the individual that wrote that letter, it was a one-off. I'm sure the individual probably won't be sending too many more letters into the paper, and I'm quite convinced the paper will not be printing that type of letter anymore. At least I certainly hope so.
I know that we're going to be there hosting Go Island. You can watch for that on Friday on Shaw TV Channel 4. I've had some discussions with Janina at the university, and she is expecting a very frank, a very open, not a sugar-coated conversation.
Absolutely.
And I hope that it can be, I think it's meant to be the catalyst for positive conversation that came out of a very negative
situation.
event in
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to be speaking. Chief Douglas White will be speaking as well, and Dr. Ralph Nielsen, and others as well.
Yeah.
So we all want to deal with this. It's a very serious issue. It's something that we want to go public with and say this is a one-off thing as far as we're concerned, and show them that this is the result. The community's coming together and saying we've got to change what's happened. We want the people to understand this is not acceptable, and this is a very open and collaborative community. We're an inclusive community, and has no place for racism.
Thank you. It is open to the public. It's at the Vancouver Island Conference Centre on Wednesday night from 6 until 8:30. There will be some speakers, and then the microphones are going to be opened up to the public. We're going to throw things over now to Sucheta Singh. She's on a road trip to Galiano Island. I haven't been to Galiano Island since, well, a party weekend just after high school. It was a kind of a tradition for Victoria High School students on the May long weekend, but perhaps that's too much information. It's time for a revisit to Galiano Island. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.